And I thought you were just flicking me off. And two, I thought you just all right.
Oh,
That's how we're starting.
council one.
Okay, I didn't. All right, my bad. All right, well, Thursday, September 25th, 2025 at 11:03 a.m. Eastern Time with Dr. Jessica Rose. You guys can go to the description. You can find her Substack. Yeah, what we were just talking about is like, why it happens to me like about once a year n- where multiple things I realize it's like if you went into I don't know, it's like if you did like your dishes drunk and you're like, I normally don't put like the silverware there. And then you like found you're like, and I normally don't put my clothes there. You're like, yeah, that I was messed up. But I don't drink. So it's like once a year something happens where multiple shows in a row, they get like train wrecked or traffic jammed. I don't know how and it's and like you said so what you were saying is do I completely forget? No, because I actually put people in the calendar before they even confirm just because I would rather have that mistake than wait for them to confirm. And so there's no harm, no foul. If one day I'm like, hey, see you tomorrow, and they're like, we didn't agree on that, I'm like, all right. Which makes it all the more weird when this happens. It's like I don't know, like dip my toe into a black hole or something, and it's not daylight savings. It's just like all the wires get crossed, and I never
I
know
totally
why.
get it.
Yeah, I
Totally
don't.
get it. Right now, too, is when it happened to me.
Yeah,
It's like but I forget. It's like it's not a good thing to admit. And of course, it never happens with you or anyone else who's actually watching this. I would never forget you personally.
yeah, never you. I'm not
But
talking about
it's
you.
like it's out of my brain. It's like it never happened. It's
Yeah,
like I never penned it into Proton Calendar. It's very weird.
yeah.
Eh,
I
what are
don't.
you gonna do?
Maybe. Maybe it's not an accident. Maybe it's like a default thing. Like once a year, it's kind of like when it's like restart the computer. Maybe once a year, your brain's just like shakes all the shit out. I don't know,
Well,
but
it's the Day of Atonement soon, so there is something about this, time of year for some people. Like it's the start of fall and kids are going back to school and there's all these things that actually are changing. So
yeah,
maybe
honestly, if this is the worst thing going on in my life, I have a pretty great life.
yep.
That like I fucked up a couple Zoom interviews.
I
Like
know.
that's a
I have too many interviews.
yeah. I was that's what I wanted to. So I appealed my YouTube ban yesterday. And I got banned on August 27th, 2021. And I got it, and that's why it was reinstated, which is like the most surreal thing because I never thought that would happen. Um, but and this has, we didn't plan on talking about this, but like my first thoughts are like, they're only doing this because they're being pressured by Congress. But there's two or three important points. One, there was no legal pressure. It was like
Mhm.
a cultural, which I get. I'm
Yeah.
not stupid. The same reason why, like as JP Morgan doesn't actually care about gay people, but if, they're going to make a pride parade because they're a corporation, they want money.
And very importantly, it's exactly like CDC recommendations, which we're not talking about nearly enough. There were no, there's no like rule.
Yeah. It's a mandate, recommendation, docked, but it's never,
Documentation.
it's like
No
where,
laws.
well, it's kind of like asking like the police officer, like, am I being detained? Like,
Yeah,
forget everything
exactly.
else. Forget, do you have a warrant? And so like, so in terms of like that bedrock, there was no legal precedent that made YouTube allow people to get. I also understand that that's how most corporations. So I'm not trying to like, oh my God about that. I actually don't care if YouTube has a change of heart. Not, I don't care what the CEO of, I don't know, Delta thinks. Like, I don't care. A second important point is there was no legal precedent set by the Biden administration that allowed them to do this. So there's nothing on this back end in 2025 saying you can no longer do this codified. There was also nothing in the Biden administration that says you are not allowed to do this. So nothing set this off and nothing ended it. What set it off was in World War One, the U.S. had domestic propaganda, and then in 1919 we passed a law that said no more, you can't do domestic propaganda. In 1941, we waived it. And like, hey, you got to have, kill the Japs, kill the Germans. And then at the end of 1945, we said, all right, no more domestic propaganda. Or maybe it was 1948, Smith-Mund Act, MUNDT. That was repealed by Obama. And I don't want, forget the president. I don't want people, oh, it's bro. No, forget it. It was part of the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which is a yearly thing of the DoD, which is the sacred cow. That is what allowed this. So even though it didn't happen until 2021, that is what allowed it. So there was n nothing coming in from Biden that allowed it, and Trump's not doing anything that's disallowing it. So
That's right.
really,
Yeah.
it's 9 out of 10 doctors recommend thing. There's no framework. Now
Five out of six dentists.
exactly. So like I'm psyched about it. I'm gonna
What about the six dentists?
well that's so
Right.
I'm gonna upload it all to YouTube, and I'm psyched about it just to grow the platform. I mean, YouTube is Rumble has 78 million monthly active users. YouTube has 2.7 billion. Like I'm excited just from the trying to grow the show. But I have no, and I don't, and this is kind of what I want to, just because you and I always talk about whatever. Is this is this like fact-based caution, or have I been so demoralized by the last 4 years that when something good happens, I'm like, it's not good. They're gonna fuck me. Like, is this a case of like me not being able to accept something good happening in my life, or should I, kind of keep my guard up?
I'll keep your guard up all the time, but like run with it because I mean that's the attitude I'm hearing from most people. It's like get what you can while you can.
Yeah,
Run with it. Yeah, don't keep your eye on them, but you also take what you can get, man.
yeah,
They
yeah,
took enough.
yeah. No,
Um,
that's kind of my thoughts is push it on YouTube, grow it as much as I can, and just like before I was banned, try to do cross pollination between the two. Hey, go subscribe to Rumble, and if you're on Rumble, hey, go subscribe to YouTube. But
mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't have like a concrete feeling of like we won. I'm like very
No,
like what are
no,
they doing?
it's not quite like that yet, I think. I
No,
think we can't say that about anything at this point. Like we're making steps though in the right direction. I really believe that. I don't think that we're ever going to uh defeat the big monster.
no, no.
But we don't have to. All we have to do is keep doing what we're doing. Like I'm reflecting on this all the time. By the way, I want to talk about our new paper, the DNA paper. It's
Yeah.
very important for people to know about. Um, it's uh it's amazing to me when I reflect on where we are compared to where we could have been. Uh, it's wild. Like even to look at the screen sometimes at the people who are standing behind the podiums, like making the announcements, like on behalf of HHS, like RFK. It's like, wow, that's surreal. I could not have anticipated that like 5 years ago.
I
I don't
still
think
get
anybody
I get that still. I try to intentionally look at that like once a week where I'll be like, just look at same thing.
and Jay
I'm like
Bhattacharya, like
I'm
they
like
tried to
Trump's
bury
tweeting. I'm like very, but sorry for interrupting you. But the way I look at it is I take it as a lesson of like, hey, what you thought was impossible last year is not only here, but you've already accepted it as the norm. So in the alternative to blackpilling, I'm like, basically not to sound like a Hallmark card, but I'm like, don't be afraid to like wish and to plan big because it can happen. It happened. So sorry, I
Oh,
interrupted.
aim the biggest. Put your
Yeah.
bar like as high as it can be. Be like outrageous and use your bloody imaginations for Christ's sake. Pardon my
Yeah.
language, everyone, but like really, if not for the exercise of using your imagination, because it occurs to me that among all the things that have been robbed from people over the last 5 years, the freedom to dream and imagine is something so important as human beings that has been really preyed on. I think is the best way to say it. Yeah, speaking of censorship,
Hold
maybe
on. I was trying to read. You said it. This is one of my old phone backgrounds. Imagination is revolutionary. Oppressive systems rely foremost upon convincing the oppressed that there is no alternative. In a sense, it must sustain an ideological dogma where belief in the possibility of change is seen as delusional and unlikely. Freedom of thought must mean the freedom to challenge a dominant ideological consensus, which means like and then my current phone background, if you're going to overthink all the time, at least overthink all the ways it could work out in your favor. The best case scenario and every version of your life that turns out way better than expected. If you're gonna overthink anyway.
dare to dream.
Yeah. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
hop onto the DNA paper.
Yeah, so I'll go backwards. So it's a good segue because you were talking about YouTube and censorship and stuff. So um well, yeah, I'll tell it chronologically in the way that it will make sense to censorship. So we published a paper, me and Kevin McKernan and David Speaker published a paper. I guess it's going on 2 weeks now ago. It got published to the journal Autoimmunity, and we definitively showed that there's DNA in the Pfizer and Moderna vials that we tested, in every single vial that we tested. And it took us 6 tries, 6 journals. In some of those cases, we actually went through the peer review process and then it got rejected until we finally reached this journal, where we got it peer reviewed and they accepted it for publication. So it's already been through the washer. Now, the moment it got uploaded and immortalized on PubMed, and long before, the vultures started circling trolls from PubPeer, which we call pub smear because they're literally a conflicted paid organization, uh, made up of a bunch of people whose job it is to destroy good science and anything that goes anything that asks good questions. I'm not even going to say goes against a narrative. Any piece of paper with a science-backed story with good methodologies that asks questions that might throw certain systems like Big Pharma into chaos. So anyway, we got the threatening email about a week after it was published from, the journal saying there have been complaints, and we have to start an investigation. And this is the preface to retraction, okay? I made a speech at this Brownstone event a couple weeks ago or a week ago, where I actually predicted before we got that email that this was going to happen because it's happened to me before, and I know that it's going to happen now because this paper's far more important than my myocarditis paper even. Um, so yeah, now I wrote them back a nice email. I said, listen, do you mind disclosing who the complaint about our paper came from and what the complaint was? What was it? What was it based on? Was it based on the methodology? Was it based on what was it based on? And they were really nice. They said, yeah, it came from PubPeer, from some pseudonym who was whining about VAERS, the use of VAERS data. And we even write a disclaimer in our paper showing, like, we know the limitations of using VAERS. That's why we didn't push to do like a dose response relationship curve, for example. So anyway, um, as part of this nightmare that we've all been going through for the last 5 years, I'm hearing a lot of people asking the question, and this is coming up a lot lately, why are you still talking about that? It's so over. The COVID thing is over. And it's like, no,
No.
it's not even close to being
No,
over.
you go
It's
fuck yourself.
like especially for the people who suffered injuries, that's not over for them. It's crazy. Not over for the people who got fired from their jobs, not over for the economy, which got tanked, which is not going to recover, not over, we could go on and on. So this playbook of retracting papers, which you know probably more about than I do, like 'cause the retraction rate has just gone through the roof since 2020. Um, it's a playbook. It's like I can almost write a script telling people what to expect and when, like even a time frame, if they publish something that threatens big pharma, for example. So just to fill in some blanks on what we found. So we tested a bunch of Canadian vials of Pfizer and Moderna in 2 different ways. We quantified DNA. This has been done before, by the way, in many labs all over the world. This is reproduced work, and they found the same trend. Um, so we took all of those papers, thoroughly read them, either duplicated their methodology and or added to it. So we looked at this from every angle. We, as we were writing it and as we were doing the assays, we were like, okay, what more can we do here in anticipation of what somebody might say to, try and rip us apart?
Yeah,
And
it's
so
a
yeah, we did everything. We boiled, prepped the LNPs to break them open to get proper access to the DNA. We treated with RNAs to get rid of crosstalk between our, blah, blah. We did so many things. Our methods is really clearly written down. Anyone can reproduce what we did, and for almost no money. This is just PCR and fluorometry. And in the case of every single vial, it was 32 vials, 16 lots, but we found limits that were over what the EMA limit of 10 nanograms per dose indicates. But this is not even the most disturbing thing. That limit, that 10 nanogram per dose limit, is based on naked DNA, not lipid nanoparticle encapsulated DNA. So if you asked me, I would say that no amount of lipid nanoparticle encapsulated DNA is quote unquote safe.
sure.
And especially when you consider the fact, this is probably the most important finding, that one of the DNA fragments that we discovered was SV40 enhancer promoter, which is a mammalian promoter. So it has no place in these vials. It shouldn't be there, and it's functional as a nuclear localization sequence. So it's used in gene therapy. It's actually used in on benches to traffic shit to nuclei, sorry, of cells. So it's a gene therapy tool, and it's in the vials. So it's disastrous from the point of view of cancer promotion because, and by the way, this is all peer-reviewed published stuff that I'm saying. You can look it
Hmm.
up. Look up P53 and SV40 enhancer promoter enhancer. There's binding that goes on there. And you don't need background to understand this, whoever's listening to this. If you have a protein or a molecule or a piece of DNA that's functional, that has a job, and you throw something exogenous, like from the outside, at that, let's just call it a molecule, and you interfere with its normal behavior, functioning, mechanism of action, what do you think is going to happen? At the very least, maybe nothing much, but depending on what you're talking about here, and in this case, we're talking about a tumor suppressor gene that's really important for suppressing tumors.
Hmm.
When you have binding events with that guy, the guardian of the genome, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to anticipate that you're probably going to start having problems with cancer. And it's really interesting that this matches what we're seeing in the clinical setting. Like you know better than anyone. Like
Well, I,
the
I was gonna say basic. I mean, if you, I know nothing about engines and automobiles. I know how to turn a key. If you threw something that's not, a piece of paper, if you threw paper clips in an engine, best case, nothing's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen though. Anyone know? Don't throw it in the gears, right? It's pretty. Sorry, keep going.
No, exactly. And I love the analogy because it's really good actually. Or you could think most people are probably thinking sugar in the engine or salt or sand in the engine or something like.
Anything
No.
that is not part of the streamlined baseline, whatever standardized process.
Yep. And so instead of having your engine running properly, well, it's kind of the same thing. It's the anti-cancer engine, or at least a component of it running properly. You're going to have an interference with that mechanism. So at least that particular mechanism of action. But like I said, P53 is really important. Um, there's a whole bunch of other stuff
Doesn't
too, like
P53 come from exercise? Doesn't it increase from exercise?
I'll have to look that
I
up.
thought I remember reading a popular science literally like 20 years ago. It's
I'm
something
gonna
that
look
like
it
it
up
was
right
like it was
now.
released or increased by. anaerobic exercise.
I mean, that makes sense.
Sorry, I gotta stop interrupting you. Sorry.
It says it's complex. Actually, it says P53 protein expression in skeletal muscle is reduced with endurance training, but
Ah,
the amount of activated P53 is increased in the trained state. How interesting. Huh. Okay. Well, that just speaks to the ebb and flow of of all the various and sundry molecules, not just immunological ones,
sure.
but the body. And it's not just about expression, it's about methylation and all this stuff that
Function, yeah.
I could talk about, but it doesn't matter. So importantly, even if we like just not talk about SV40 promoter enhancer, which by the way, wasn't disclosed. Um, it's in the plasmid that was used to produce the nucleoside modified mRNA, but it wasn't disclosed by the manufacturers, which is really, really bad. That's fraud. So even if you take that out of the equation, there are billions of DNA fragments that we've detected in these vials. And when you subject a cell to transfection by an LNP carrying foreign DNA of any kind, it doesn't even matter what it is, especially tons, billions of little tiny fragments, and you introduce those to the cytosol, which is naturally what's going to happen once they break out of the endosome that they get into from the introduction by the LNP. Um, you're going to induce cancer pathways. It's a natural part of the response of the cell to become, for inflammatory pathways to get activated. And also there's a particular one, this is also published, called the cGAS STING pathway, which I know nothing about, but it's a cancer pathway, and it's induced by the introduction of foreign DNA into a cell. So that that can't not be happening if if what we found, well, no, what we found is what we found. And if the problem that we don't know the answer to or the questions that we don't know the answers to, and this goes also back to biodistribution and dose and the lies that we were all told, is that we have no idea and no real way to find out or quantify a dose. We don't know which cells get introduced, with this genetic material by LNPs. We know that they biodistribute. We know that they can go everywhere, but we don't know where they actually end up in the person. And once those cells get introduced with those genetic, components, we don't actually know how much is in there. We don't know how much mRNA, and we don't know how much DNA, and we don't know how many DNA hybrids, DNA RNA hybrids. So we can't anticipate the effect on that particular cell. And on that subject matter, we also can't anticipate whether or not integration is going to be a problem. So it's like we're at this crossroads now where they have to admit, because you can't deny something that's published with a methodology as strong as ours. They have to admit that this is a problem now. And once we acknowledge, as a bunch of humans who care about each other, that this is a problem, we can try, I don't know how, but we can try to start to fix the problem. Because I don't know, man. It's such an overwhelming thought. You know what I mean? Like how do we start unraveling the potential cancer
Yeah.
existential crisis that we've created?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's it's and I don't know if this holds, but I remember saying this with Dr. McCullough years ago, probably before I was banned, was it with like classification or something, who killed Kennedy or whatever, like things can get burned. That's the thing about like human events is they you can, the law of the conservation of matter, that doesn't exist with like knowledge. Like you can just burn it and it's gone if no one has a copy. It's a fascinating thing. You can't do it with science. Like China can go to the moon right now and find footprints and be like, well, fucking A. you know? Like, and there's a certain beauty to that in that it doesn't need to be defended. And it makes me think of, and I don't know how much of what I know about this is factual and how much is just from the HBO series, but it makes me think of Chernobyl, to where Soviet Union, I mean, clamp down on sent. They can do whatever they send the secret police. They cut phone lines. They'll fucking kill you and your family. Like they can do a pretty bang up job at keeping something quiet. Um, but with Chernobyl's release of strontium 90, I think radioactive calcium, and then all the other plutonium, uranium, polonium. Um, and as it kind of drifted out to other cities in the Soviet Union, they could still shut it down there. You didn't see people dying, and if they are dying, it's natural causes or whatever. And they did a pretty good job. But eventually, those clouds started to go to Europe or over like the Pacific Ocean, and then countries that were not under the control of the Soviet Union were like, "Hey, what the fuck is this? This is not background. This is like 80,000 million times more than background." My point is that is self-evident physical based truth where eventually, and then you have I think the US might have even reached out to him and they're like, do you need help with this, because this is going to fucking kill all of us. But my point is that's something you can't hide. And at the time it can seem like truth will never get out. It's the Soviet Union. They'll clamp down on everything. Okay, and you can, for a while you can do a pretty good job. I've always felt that whatever it is that's happening, planned or not, accident or not, whatever it is, that's whatever was thrown into the engine, whether it makes it better, maybe you discovered nitrous, maybe it makes it worse. Whatever happened will eventually be self-evident. And it might
Mhm.
take, and that's not always inspiring. It's like, well, how long did it take for China? Well, we went in 1969 and, so I don't know, 60 years later, it's like, well, that doesn't make me feel better. But that's kind of the concrete part of self-evident physical truth is it just is. I can't help. And you could even, let's pick apart the moon analogy. Yeah, full conspiracy. Yeah, America could send up, I don't know, a rocket that drops boots to whatever. Okay. Not Chernobyl, where it's a trillion quintillion googolplex raised to the googolplex atoms. The same thing here. We're talking about DNA contamination and alteration in most of the human genome. 70 trillion cells times 8 billion people. My point of all of that is my optimism is that the truth is will be so physically self-evident that we will be able to find out what happened. Now, the important part is this isn't the moon. We can't wait for it to find out and then go, told you so. People we all know and love got this. We have to act on it now. And you can't be focused on as seductive as it is, you can't be focused on the slam dunk, told you. That's not what someone needs to hear if they're in their 30s and they had a stroke.
100%, man.
So, and rant. But yeah.
No, no, excellent rant. And you're exactly right. I mean, when you look around, like, every time I talk to someone, I hear about someone with cancer. Yesterday, it was a 9-year-old little girl with leukemia.
Jesus.
It's like okay, wait, is that normal? Like, what was it like when I was young? Like, I know that there was like every now and then a sporadic case of someone having cancer. But now it's like something is different, and it's different from a certain time point. And you have to, and I want to go further on what your point was. There has to come a time, and I really think that now is the time because we're also facing a potential existential crisis with AI coming. When the humans, as a species, have to band together and throw away the bullshit, throw away the politics, throw away the money, throw away the fame, throw away all this stupid geopolitical crap and come together as a species and realize, like, listen, we really screwed ourselves on this one. Whether it was a mistake and they grabbed the wrong plasmid or whether it was intentional, it doesn't matter. Because, like you said, we're not really going to find out exactly what happened for a while, at least a long time, like at least a few years, because, like I said, we need to acknowledge the problem. The people who did this need to acknowledge the problem, I think. Um, Accountability is another thing that a lot of people are going to want. But most importantly, we need to frickin' come up with a way to fix this. And the first part of fixing it is to stop doing it. This is why we're trying to get rid of the platform because clearly good manufacturing practices are not just, they're not the only problem here. They're a problem, but the LNPs are a problem all on their own. This isn't just this magical plug and play thing that they're trying to push. What I mean by that is this LNP, you know, uh, nucleotide wrapped fat bubble, and you can just swap out whatever you want, like for the magic vaccine bullet against flu or coronaviruses or whatever. Like, no, no. Um, so I really, really, really think it's time for us to like get our shit together as a species and like stop screwing ourselves over, first of all, and really start looking at this as the massive potentially existential crisis that it is. Because I'm sorry, I don't think cancer, like running amok in small children being common, is okay.
Mm.
I don't think it's right. I think it shows a horrible imbalance in life and living, obviously. We weren't born into, or evolved or whatever you want to believe, into this ecosystem, you know, with an inherent, requirement to become tumors by the time we're 10. No, something's wrong. Something is off. And, I think that these shots with these things that we found in them, the DNA and the SV40s, I think it's just propelling everything. I think the problem already existed. I think that these are just pushing everything. And maybe it's a mixed blessing in disguise because, or I don't know. Maybe that's going a bit too far, but maybe this is what we need to kind of shake people up to say, listen, you know, we've gone way too far with these industries, food industries, water industries, vaccine industry, school, the education system is an industry. I mean, we've gone too far, man. We need to we need to pull it back and come back to what it means to be humans. And part of being human, because we have these immunological, systems, is living pretty long lives without being sick all the time, quite frankly, right?
And more importantly, of whether it's a good thing or not, or this is a blessing in disguise or not, or regardless. And I tend to, no matter what, try to find the optimism in things simply because I'll go insane if I don't. Um, Regardless of any of that, it happened. And it's like we got to deal with it. I don't
Yep.
care. The Titanic deck is shifting, and it's like, do we hit an iceberg? And probably have some version of me or be like, no, there was a bomb. It's a conspiracy. But it's like, hey, man, regardless, it's like it's 1912. We're in the middle of the Atlantic. We don't have cell phones. It's tipping, and the water's going to kill us all. We can find out if it was the ship manufacturer or if it was negligence, but the angle is getting steeper. You got to deal with it now. You just have to. You got
Yep.
to if you're stuck in the World Trade Center and it's on fire, you're probably not too concerned about whether it was Bin Laden or somehow related to Saddam or whether it was Santa Claus. You got to get the fuck out of that thing. You got to get away from it as fast as possible.
That's
That's
exactly what I was
priority
going
one.
to say.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of how I look at this. Is like you do have to find out who did it. You do have to find out why it happened. You do have to punish that. You do have to
But
all that.
first,
But first, because and there's an important part in that, and this isn't something like, you know, lead paint or asbestos or, Lucky Strike cigarettes. This isn't something where you go, hey, you should all stop that. And then we stop it. And those people, unfortunately, will probably die of that. The asbestos generation, my generation will probably be like the microplastic generation, whatever. And then it's a self deleterious that dies out. And the the new generation's like, yeah, don't do that. That's bad for you. And that's just kind of human history, right? This is
Yep.
different in that it seems to be in the blueprint for humanity now, which it now it's in the copier machine.
It could be in
It could
some people.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
That's what we need to find out because if this becomes a generational problem, which it could, because if integration happens in germline cells, poof, there you go. At least for some people. And I'm not going to say this is, happening in everyone and
no,
it's a
you have
huge,
no we have no idea, but it's a very important possibility.
yeah. And if it is, if it does realize this possibility, this action, that does mean that your genome is screwed effectively because this spike shit, or the off-target proteins or the genetic code that was integrated, whatever it is, whatever got integrated is harmful. I mean, if you have if you have the coding material for an amyloid protein, I don't even want to think. I don't even know if I can think about it because it's like, what? Maybe I will think about that later though, because I would like to finish that thought. I haven't gone down that trail, but like it's just what a disaster that would be. And I mean, the only thing, like again, I just reiterate, we have to acknowledge the problem. Exactly like you said, you use the perfect examples, like or analogies, like first we have to deal with this. People will be held to account once we figure out what happened. We already know what happened, but we need to solve this problem before it gets out of hand. Like stop first of all, people stop. They need to stop injecting themselves with this crap. I mean, yesterday I was hearing conversations about people whose loved ones were going for shot 10. And I'm like,
What the fuck?
what school did you go to? What immunology courses did you do that taught you that was something you should do? I don't even know how to phrase it properly. Like inoculation, immunization is a beautiful idea conceptually, but it requires one shot with an attenuated pathogen or proteins, something solid, not genetic material that your body recognizes as foreign, and thus, because we have secondary responses that can mount, responds to the challenge with a real pathogen later. It's a gorgeous thing because you don't get sick from the inoculation, and then you don't get sick or die from the pathogen. Beautiful. This whole booster shit, I actually kind of used to believe in that. It's like, yeah, maybe you should after 20 years spike your, CD8s back into whatever. And maybe there is some validity to that. But I think the whole thing at this point, after learning what I've learned, is probably a scam in most cases, especially if you're talking about three shots. Like everyone's told they need to get a tetanus booster every 5 years or 3 years or 10 years or 20 years, depending on where you are in the world. And it's like, what is it? Can anyone defend why you need to get a tetanus booster at all? Can anyone defend why the timing is really backwards when they actually tell you you need to get a booster after you've been introduced potentially to
I actually got a tetanus booster during the pandemic in 2021 because I was putting laundry away. I had these like metal wire things in the wall of the apartment or whatever, and I like sliced my forearm. Not bad, but it was deep enough that I was bleeding. And I was like, I thought because it was like it's like those metal shelves that are kind of like rubbered over,
Hmm?
and there was an edge that was rusty as fuck, and I was just like, that can't be good. So I went and did that. So I don't know. That's like my asterisk. Like if you visibly slice your arm, not a little scratch, a big one bleeding, and the edge is very clearly like orange and red and brown. I was like,
You know what I learned recently, Tommy? Because I also had I ripped my hand open and so like first of all, when you're talking about rusty nails, that whole story with tetanus is bullshit. You need
oh,
introduction to like pathogens that come from poop, like animal poop. So it's unlikely that you were exposed. I also learned brand new information when this happened to me that if your wound is like visibly bleeding, there's probably no way for the bacteria, the tetany
oh, to get
bacteria.
in because it's
Yeah, because they're anaerobic, so the oxygen will kill them. There's all these things I didn't know, and I'm like, wow, it's all part of the plan to not only make money per shot, but just keep people injected, and you have to do this to be healthy. The equivalizing, if that's a word, the equivalentizing, I like that better, of injecting you with something with health is so insidious. It's so backwards. Like, and it's not just my opinion, it's a fact. It actually is to your detriment in this COVID shot context because we know now also because of peer-reviewed studies that if you multiply inject an antigen with, non-sterilizing immunity occurs, you actually develop polarizing antibodies. So it's like when you become exposed to the challenge pathogen, your immune system's just going to put its hands up in the air and go, I'm not going to do anything about that. And you're going to get really sick. And all the stuff that's going to happen from the introduction to the spike protein and all the other proteins and the immunological response from other, arms, it's gonna throw you into haywire. It's so backwards. I can't even I can't even. It's like,
I, th-
what are you doing, people? Stop injecting yourselves. It doesn't make sense.
I think, unfortunately, what it's probably going to be will be irrefutable death. Because right now you can still, oh, you're a dumb libtard, or you're a conservatard, and that'll get some of the people I know that are like my age. I know one chick I've had on the show who's like in a wheelchair. Like those people don't need to be
Yeah,
convinced. But how are you going to convince most? I think it's probably going to have to reach a point where
probably.
even the most brainwashed people can no longer. And I don't mean that in a derog. I'm sure I'm brainwashed in ways that I'm unaware of. I
Oh
think the
my,
only,
everybody.
yeah, I think the only way you're going to kind of pierce that is when it's not like a one in a million, but it's like I know like 10 people that have dropped dead in the last year. I think some people are going to have that creeping. And unfortunately, I think that's, it could, I mean, with research, I mean, again, kind of look at, you know, hell freezing over. It's like, yeah, there's like RFKs there. And you're like, well, I never thought that was going to happen. It could happen. I am optimistic that it very well could happen. Um, But if that doesn't happen, the sort of Chernobyl thing will be, it just won't be deniable. And anyone that would deny it would have no interest in denying it because they're concerned about their wife or daughter or husband or mom
Or even pocketbook.
or
Yeah.
pocketbook
Well,
or themselves or whatever. I think that will be that's the one that cannot be ignored. That's the Chernobyl. That's the footprints on the moon. Hopefully, we can get after it before then. But
so an inspiring thing on what you just said that people might want to watch, to kind of like for me, it's a needle moving moment. Like I spoke at the Massachusetts State House the other day. I was lucky to be invited to have 5 minutes, and it was for the injured people and for the people who got laid off from their jobs. They came to give personal testimonies, and it's on YouTube. I posted it on my Substack so you can watch it. It's absolutely stunning, these people's personal stories, not just the injured people, the people with like in all these institutions that we know about, like the DMV and this hospital and that place, and they all just got fired outright. There's no hiding it because they didn't want to take the shot and it was mandated in their workplace. They just got fired after like decades of service. Friends, like you make friends at your workplace
mhm.
after a long time like that. Some of them reached the highest position and they still got fired because their credentials were quote unquote reassessed. It wasn't, it couldn't be legal. Anyway, the media was there in droves, which was, I think, one of the first times that much media showed up for one of these because it's really only a handful of people. At one point, I counted and there were 25 people, and I almost cried because I'm like, how can there only be 25 people in this room? Yeah, sorry. It's like, anyway, so everybody should watch that thing. And in my Substack, I also post two news agency reports on it. And it wasn't what I was expecting. I was kind of expecting a little bit more smeariness, like, like
Yeah.
saying crap about people
Like
being
Spirit
anti-candidate.
card. Yeah.
Yeah, but actually what they did, they actually covered one of the testifier stories. And they were quite what would be the word? Fair, I think is the right word. And this is Massachusetts, so I'm new to all this, but apparently, there's a lot of maintained backwards thinking here. There's a lot of mandates, there's a lot of they're going for not allowing exemptions, like not even religious exemptions. So yeah, anyway, there's a lot of work to do here, apparently. Here's my cat. He always has to
Kitty.
say hi.
Hello.
Mm.
He's big.
Yep. So anyway, yeah, everybody should watch that for a little bit of reality check, but hope, because the fact that we're even able to have these gatherings in these beautiful buildings is great. It shows it sh he's so cute.
Aw.
It shows he's mommy's guy. Ooh, you're so distracting. I lost my thought.
Um,
The kid.
uh,
Little kitty.
we do have to wrap it up because I have to do other shit. But I was gonna say, completely unrelated to everything is, uh, yeah, or whenever we spoke last week, and you were like, "Hey, I'm going to meet a friend or something on a bridge." My first thought was
Oh
like
yeah, right.
Jason Bourne or something, where it's like there's always some like CIA drop, or if you're going out there, you're getting framed for like an
No, it was
assassination.
it was my buddy. I never
Yeah, I
see it
know,
for
but
like.
I didn't
He
explain
didn't show
any of
up,
that
by the way.
context. I didn't explain any of that context to you. I just texted you in response, you're gonna get assassinated.
Oh,
And you
that's what
and
that
then
was.
like
Oh.
put my phone down or something for 12 hours and you were like, "What the fuck?" So like I don't know,
No,
just as a
I
light.
I thought you meant I was gonna get like, something happening to me in my travels through Boston because I'm an anti-vaxxer or whatever. I
No,
don't know.
I placed it in context of something that explained nothing. And so on a lighter note, that was kind of funny. You're just like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, "You're gonna get killed." And then it's like went to bed. Um, but
Yeah, my friend never showed up, by the way. She got stuck in traffic or in a parking garage or something. And so yeah, I ended up
CIA,
not getting
CIA,
assassinated.
CIA, no, CIA. My theory holds. Um, but we have to wrap it up right now.
Trust me, she's not.
All right, fair enough. For everybody listening, please go to the description. Please go find our Twitter and Substack. Um, but yeah, no, I think with what you said is important. Look back at a year ago and then look where we are now and look how surreal that is. And then don't stop there. Extrapolate. Be like, what? This is how whenever I try to like, imagine something like better, I have like incremental imaginations. But every once in a while, I'll remind myself, like, your imagination should scare you, and not in a bad way. You should look at something that's so good that it frightens you. And that's how I try to imagine is like, what is something so good it actually like intimidates me? And I think that's kind of an important thing, whether it's imagination or meditation or prayer or just something to work towards. I would say that's what I always do is if it's not frightening you a little bit, then you're not dreaming big enough. So on that note, uh, we'll wrap it up. Bye, Kitty. Dr. Rose, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. I think he's looking at me like he wants to take a chomp.
Well, he's very upset with you. His plan to kill you didn't work.
Well, no, he's upset with me because I'm not paying full attention to him.
I totally get it. This will be up tomorrow. I'll text you again, guys. Everybody in the description, please go follow on Twitter. Please go follow on Substack. Dr. Rose, thank you so much.